Hello. Continuing with CHT's podcast series with candid and in-depth discussions with our prominent clients. Today we're joined by Magic Leap's former CFO, Scott Henry. I hope you enjoy.
So when I think about systems, I think about enterprise systems and what companies need to operationalize, to record and report, to pay and collect, to do variance analysis, to actually understand how to scale them without meaningful risk. And I did spend almost 18 years on Wall Street, the longest and the majority of that time at Salomon Brothers, which is my first job out of school. Gave me tremendous exposure to growing businesses and kind of what their challenges were. Magic Leap was the fifth CFO job that I had. So by the time I got to Magic Leap, I already knew a little bit about what it meant to be a CFO.
And Kareem, do you want to?
Yeah, let's do a take two.
I have 7 of these, by the way, exactly the same.
This is the only shirt I wear. So respect.
It's actually tattooed to you, isn't it? Like your staples back.
Lower back.
Yeah, it works.
But for take two with Scott Henry, thanks for joining us again. I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming also Jack McCarthy, the CEO, managing partner of Chestnut Hill, this fine organization that we're all a part of, to add some more context to the Magic Leap, let's call it saga, from 2018? 2017 through
2020.
To 2020, where CHT was instrumental in getting Magic Leap up and running from a cloud perspective, from an ERP perspective. There was very little technology that we didn't touch and impacted the growth and production strategy of Magic Leap. So it should make for an interesting conversation. And again, this is take two, so let's get started. Scott Henry, as we all know, and Jack McCarthy.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So for people who don't know Jack, if you want to give him a quick intro to Jack.
Sure. So I'm the managing partner and founder of CHT. 29 years now in technology services, fulfillment and delivery, various levels, and guiding CHT through what's now year 7, going into year 8 in May of continuous growth and success in supporting Southeast U.S. and Northeast U.S. clients and expanding into other markets. And very happy to be joined by my senior infrastructure lead, Kareem, has been carrying the CHT flag at Humana subsidiary for the past several years, and more recently helping us with our continuous video profiling of significant clients and significant projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, those stories should be told if you want to be the guy to tell them. So, with that in mind, Jack, if you don't mind telling, how'd you get introduced to Scott?
Sure. All right. So, 2015, I was with another organization, got introduced to Scott, and met with Scott and the COO of Magic Leap at the time, Hank Valestra, when both were very new to Magic Leap. Magic Leap was still in the Dakota, and we had a speed breakfast, 7 a.m. one morning at a hotel where they proceeded to gut the team I had in place, but kept the door open to make adds, changes, replacements, and we built out an infrastructure team from 2015 to 2016 supporting the early stages of Magic Leap's build out, and didn't really touch other engineering parts of the group, but supported corporate infrastructure.
So before you go, I want to wind it back a tiny bit and make a few adjustments.
It's going to be key
So
here.
we were really pleased with Jack when we had him early on at his predecessor company. And when Hank and I sat down with him, we noticed the team that Jack was leading, we had next to nothing when I joined Magic Leap. 95% of the employees were engineers. We were an R&D shop. essentially proving out a technology. There were 4 finance people, there was 1 HR person, 2 HR people. They were both almost entirely focused on recruiting because we outsourced the entire HR function to ADP TotalSource. So I reconfigured the finance team, reached out to certain key folks that I had on my team at Beats by Dre and at Beats Music to bring them in to help me build the foundation of the finance organization. One of the key resources I brought in was Landon, right? At Beats, Landon was focused on finance systems deployment, integrations, Hyperion, S-Base, a variety of other things, because we were migrating to an Oracle system there from QuickBooks. We were the largest QuickBooks company, I think, in history, or one of their top 3 or 4. We, did over $1.2 billion in revenues in QuickBooks with QuickBooks Enterprise, and it was bursting apart at the seams for us to sort of get it right. Landon played a huge role in that at Beats. So I instinctively said, wow, we need somebody with his skill set here. I needed somebody that was operational finance, somebody that was a solid controller, somebody that was a great planner, right? But I needed somebody that really understood systems because data was everything, right? Hank approached me and sort of said, look, we got all these people doing a whole bunch of stuff that we don't need. And I said, thank you. That's great. We do that. So we did. We had this breakfast with Jack and we said, look, got all these guys running around. We had somebody that was sort of as a consultant to us on the IT side giving us instruction was a professor, really smart, really capable, but never operated inside of an organization. So he was throwing resources at theoretical things instead of things that we needed from an operational readiness and an operational sort of performance perspective. Hank saw this, brought it to me so that we had sort of a mind meld on it. We approached Jack and said, look, you can stay on, but you got to blow up all this stuff.
Right.
We really liked Jack because Jack was sort of the cornerstone. And when Jack left this predecessor employer, we missed him, right? Which is why we agreed to stay in touch. And we felt the void that Jack left. We were really unhappy with the service level that we were getting in Jack's absence. So the minute he was able to come up above water, we were looking for things to do with him.
So you were sold on Jack before you were sold on
100%, yeah. It's all about the player, right? When other things are equal, right? It's about the player.
Gotcha.
We needed to move off of QuickBooks as we were getting ready to be a full service manufacturer and operator of an ecosystem, similar to Apple in a way, right? We had hardware, right? We had an application ecosystem, a content ecosystem. We were going to be doing microtransactions in that ecosystem, and we were going to be building product around the globe. So we knew we needed a tier 1 ERP system. I had a very close relationship with Deloitte. Deloitte was the firm that actually partnered with SAP to build what became codenamed D-Chips inside of Apple, which was essentially the SAP system that powered the App Store, okay, as well as the manufacturing of all the iPhones, right, and other Apple hardware that was being made. So it became clear to us that we needed a plan. Accordingly, we wanted somebody that had knowledge, and if we wanted to be like Apple at some point in time in the future, we'd be better off going with somebody that already trod on that path. It's like going to the base camp of Everest for the first time. You'd rather look at everybody else's mission plan, right? And figure out what went wrong, but you're starting 85% configured, moving in the right direction. We also had a bad experience at Beats at Oracle. So we said, let's go with SAP. It was a very competitive process between the two, but ultimately we picked SAP. We realized pretty quickly, and BCG didn't come into this until a little bit later in the process. What we realized is working with tier 1 integration firms and consulting firms, we weren't getting the tier 1 talent within those firms. We were not getting I had daily battles with the folks at Deloitte to make sure they were deploying the best possible resources for us to help us, right? SAP was promising us the moon, but it was really the integrator, right, that we bought the software from, and they were doing the design with us, and then ultimately the implementation. And it was during this process that Hank approached me and said, look, Landon's looking to spread his wings. He's looking to, at this point, we had rolled IT underneath Hank. Originally it was under me, but we rolled it up underneath Hank. He was taking on more responsibility, including for HR at that point. And he said, Landon wants to come work with me, or I want to have him come work with me, and I want him to lead this project. So Landon became the vice president of IT systems and IT infrastructure. He started moving forward on this path to, sort of be the captain, if you will, of success for, the implementation of these various different work streams and initiatives we had from a project perspective.
So you have the big tier one firms essentially lined up.
Mm-hmm.
They've done this. This wasn't a new expedition for them, and you were confident that they could get you there.
Absolutely.
Based on their prior experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't quite pan out the way you thought it would.
We're losing institutional knowledge because there's institutional knowledge from a product perspective, right? But, I think one of the big misnomers out there is if you've got software that's pre-configured to do something, it just does it. Well, it's what? Yeah. And now it may not need to be customized, but it needs to be configured, right? Adjusted. And that last 5 or 10% makes all the difference, right? So we needed that. And what was happening with Deloitte was that it was a revolving door talent, right? We get people we like, and then 3 weeks later they get moved off onto a different project. Okay, so there's 4 days on, 1 day off, 4 days on, 1 day off. The leadership was consistent, right? But the leadership wasn't doing the execution, they were managing the project. It was those who were actually executing and building, okay, that we saw a fair amount of turnover. And Landon put his hand up and said, hey, you know what, we're paying all this money for all this work. We're not getting the kind of velocity we need. Jack and his team were doing other things for us at the time, and slowly but surely he started creeping into other things. And Landon kept putting his hand up and say, hey, Chris as well, but Landon kept saying, to me at least, because I put my trust in him to go do this.
Yeah, he had a big job.
And you can't delegate responsibility for getting it right. You can just delegate authority to do it. So we had a very frequent feedback loop, and he kept putting his hand up and said, look, we need different resources on this. Not only were you going to get cheaper resources, because he knew I wanted to save money if we could, but we're going to get better resources and better consistency.
So did that make it easier for Jack and the CHT team to come in and provide that service, or did we just outright shine?
Jack was a known quantity at this point, right? So we knew he was good. What we didn't realize was how broad his reach and CHT's reach or capabilities were. Yeah. And so we tried, and then we buy. We try, and then we buy, and we try, and we buy. And it really wasn't a U.S. complete team that you displaced. There were a lot of offshore resources that were working through the night to get stuff done. And seeing the same people and seeing results mattered. It's interesting, the timing of this. We were, again, resistant or reluctant to do cloud-oriented type deals on certain things, right? We had, a ton of Nutanix servers that we bought, which were obsolete the minute they showed up. We had to manage that infrastructure ourselves. We were going, and again, this is somebody buying Bentley product, right? When all we needed was an Audi to really perform it, and even outperforming the Bentley on an ROI basis. And because the sandboxing we were doing in one cloud platform, which is Google Cloud, was different than what we were doing in AWS. So we needed to be infrastructure light, okay, and really infrastructure agnostic. We were buying the infrastructure as a service at the end of the day, but the leadership on the tech side, the engineering team and the software team, was very reluctant to let their code or any of the digital diagrams or references be hosted someplace else where it could potentially be stolen.
Okay.
And I think Jack helped us, a little bit less me, a little bit more Landon, convince the heads of engineering, which is really hardware and systems engineering and software, get comfortable with the idea that, don't worry, we're going to be able to secure it, right? We've got all these cyber protocols in place. We've got, this was before we had single sign-on. There were a lot of things that were evolving at this point in time. Jack was there performing well with the team. The team was getting bigger and bigger. Then it was about where do we eliminate redundancy? And it became really clear that, BCG is just thought leaders and, they're more expensive than anyone else. Deloitte underneath that, we kept a handful of the resources that were really important to us, that helped us from a design perspective. And then we started reducing that headcount, backfilling with CHT people. It just became obvious that it was the right decision.
Was it your original intention to come in and displace Deloitte, or you just wanted to provide the best solution for the client?
We were looking for opportunities to add value, and Landon, very cautiously in 2017, brought us in to support the early legacy data warehouse environment. And we stood up a data warehouse team very quickly.
Look, Jack was great about Jack. He wanted to be the principal outsourced partner for us. And we actually formed this amazing symbiotic relationship where he was able to add value in ways that initially we thought were just project oriented, but then became recurring in nature.
If you can give me an example of what that looks like.
Jack's cost charging us was considerably lower than our cost that we would incur by staffing in multiple locations, where we needed redundancy. So one of the things we learned was what we needed to do ourselves and what we were able to rely upon a provider, a partner to do for us, largely because we were in too many locations
Spread
by ourselves. So CHT's ability to integrate that and consolidate that allowed us to eliminate redundancy and improve information access and integrity.
So I'm hearing it clearly, we added value. There were cloud initiatives, ERP. What else did we get in around?
Cloud, ERP,
BPM, data warehouse,
cybersecurity, cyber stuff.
I mean, it expanded into multiple areas by year 2, year 3. I mean, healthcare IT, Jennifer Esposito's team, the visualization, early concept stuff, and some of the AI stuff, which was getting at least looked at leading into the pandemic, was all part of our portfolio. Landon's philosophy was to just keep pushing until something breaks and to go fast. And if someone's coming through for you and delivering consistently, continue to throw stuff at them. And we ultimately never missed because, first I took a lot of pride as an owner of a very early growth consulting firm getting their first big win in South Florida, my home market professionally. But secondly, as Scott alluded to, I have a very long-term outlook on what our value prop is to clients. I find that we're still competing in a very short-term or short to medium-term mentality from a competitive standpoint. A lot of staffing firms that have this fill them and bill them mentality, and as I ruthlessly drill into my team, everyone knows this at CHT, from the recruiting team to the back office team to the consultants that are, you know this from the Conviva days. The real work begins after you get an SOW signed, because now you're on the clock and you're being judged, whether you know it or not, for performance, for ability to respond to the 1001 inevitable turbulence up to major issues which are going to develop downstream on a project. You can't have 35 or 50 people deployed and not have a total portfolio of issues which you proactively manage, and you have a plan or a methodology. We call it CHT Hypercare, which I borrowed from SAP, post-implementation support. But it's a great concept because we're in hypercare mode on every landed, engaged account because the work is constant. Look, we're billing for every hour. So there has to be performance, not just from the consultants we have out there, but from the home office. Recruiting, sales, administration, back office is all engaged directly or indirectly in seeing a successful outcome. So that means a lot of work. It means not being super price focused up front on the front end, because as I would also tell my team, I said, guys, we're giving up optimal margin, which might be there in the short term for real estate and for confidence and for reliability, building that high trust model, which is going to open every door for us.
It was an investment in the relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to
definitely
understand,
agree with that. Yeah.
at technology companies, so CHT provides services across a lot of different sectors.
Yeah.